One of my favorite ways to create a candy cane or peppermint style ganache for the holiday season is by using my basic standard white chocolate ganache recipe and then adapting and adjusting it to include some powdered or crushed up candy canes and then also some peppermint bark Candies mints. I just buy these at my local grocery store. If you don't have access to them there, I know that they are available online, places like Amazon. And then I also like to use some regular good quality white chocolate just to kind of balance that out a little bit. Otherwise, things are going to be quite similar, though I have reduced the amount of sugar because of the additional sugar coming in from the candy cane. I also really like to keep the vanilla paste in this recipe, though if you want a more strictly speaking just peppermint ganache, you can leave that out. Also, if you do not have access to any kind of peppermint flavored chocolate, you could always add in a bit of a peppermint extract or play around with that. And as you can see, I have my cream, a little bit of sugar, vanilla in the saucepan, and then cream and cornstarch in my smaller bowl. I'm going to cook this like a pastry cream, temper the warming cream into the cornstarch mixture, and then cook it until it is just thick and take it off the heat. At that point, I'll pour it over my chocolates. And then at the very, very end, after adding in my butter, I'm going to add in the candy canes. I decided I wanted to do it this way so that I could have like a teensy bit of like a crunch, a little bit of a candy cane texture as well. This is not something you have to do. And in fact, if you wanted to add it into the cream and like completely dissolve the candy canes, I think you could do that, and I think you could probably get away with then removing all of the sugar because the sugar from the candy canes will help to create the structure that kind of helps stabilize this pastry cream portion right here. And because I'm adding it at the end, that's why I wanted to leave a tiny bit of the sugar in just to help with this first structural part of the ganache. Another option for you, if you don't find the Candies peppermint bark mints, or if you don't want to use or don't have an extract, I think there are also some Hershey's Kisses that are peppermint bark or like peppermint candy flavored. You can use those as well. As you can see here, I'm just tempering that saucepan cream into the cornstarch mixture. Cornstarch can get really, really clumpy. So if you do just dump everything right into your saucepan right away, yes, there's a chance that it could work out, but you have a much greater risk of having some lumps of cornstarch, and that will cause two issues. One, you could end up with a lumpy ganache even after emulsifying it for a really long time, and that would be really terrible. Two, if the cornstarch stays in clumps until you use your immersion blender later, those clumps of cornstarch, it means it's going to take a lot longer to thicken because not all of the cornstarch has kind of become one with the rest of the mixture here. So that can cause some problems. And also part of this cooking process helps to take away any starchy flavor that the cornstarch has. And if you have a little kind of burst of cornstarch that is just a lump and was kind of dry or uncooked that bursts then later, you also run the risk of having a bit of a cornstarch taste. So just keep that in mind. This recipe using this kind of pastry cream technique is a little bit more advanced. If you want to do this style and just use a regular cream and white chocolate ganache recipe, you can absolutely make these same substitutions. Use an Candies peppermint or Hershey's peppermint kind of a chocolate, and then also throw in some candy canes and still end up with a really, really lovely ganache. I just really like this method because it's a lot creamier, a lot silkier, smoother, and you also use a lot less chocolate, which makes it also a little bit easier on the purse strings. So I've poured that really hot, thick cream mixture onto my waiting chocolates. I like to just kind of melt those a little bit in my microwave for maybe 30 seconds before I pour that mixture on there. That just helps so that the cream mixture doesn't have to work quite so hard. After letting that heat through for just another second, I'm going to use a spoon or a whisk just to make sure that everything is incorporated. And then I'm going to let this sit until it has cooled to just above room temperature. At that point, I will then switch over to my immersion blender, as you see here. And with my immersion blender, I'm going to make sure that this is completely emulsified. Everything is 100% smooth and creamy and wonderful. Then I will start adding in my room temperature butter. Having room temperature butter is super important. If you are using cold butter, it is both going to be harder to incorporate, and it might also shock the temperature of the ganache, which might lead to having a structure that isn't quite smooth and creamy. It might be a little bit, I don't know, just like lumpier because it is harder to emulsify in, and then you might end up emulsifying too much, and then it might kind of whip the ganache. So yeah, it can cause some problems if it's not room temperature butter. I like to add that in a little bit at a time, and then I'm basically just going to fold in my crushed candy cane pieces. You can do that also with your immersion blender, or as I mentioned, you can put it directly into your cream at the beginning if you want to melt that in completely. This really depends if you are going for some texture or not with the candy cane as like a crunch, I guess. Completely up to you. And then after everything is completely emulsified and incorporated, I really like to use a plastic wrap blind sheet pan. This helps create a really, really thin layer of ganache, and that means greater surface area, and that means that everything is going to cool down faster than if I were to leave it in this bowl where there isn't as great of a surface area. So that is really the only reason I do it this way. If you have another container you like better, that is completely up to you. Though no matter what you do, definitely let this cool to room temperature. Let it be, don't poke and prod at it, and then once it's cool, you can transfer it to your refrigerator. Then I'm just going to go through and pipe this into my macarons because of the crushed candy canes in here, because of the mint chocolate in here. As you can see, even without me personally adding an extra colorant, you have this really, really nice vibrant pink ganache. It almost looks like it's ruby chocolate ganache, though it is not. And because of the really intense flavor of the two different kinds of mint in there, I really don't think that you need to pair this with anything else. The only other thing you might want to play around with, if you want more of a chocolate dipped candy cane vibe here, the strength of the mint is the white chocolate kind of just balances the strength of the mint, but it doesn't taste super chocolatey. If you did want more of an intense, rich chocolate flavor, you might want to try using a dark chocolate in here. I really hope you enjoyed this recipe and tutorial. As you can see, I filled some of my swirl dipped macaron shells. That tutorial is coming for you really soon, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss out. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye!